I want to welcome Greg White, who is the Chief of Staff and General Counsel, I wanted to get that right, with the Massachusetts Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulations.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
No, it's
Appreciate
great
it.
to see you and meet you and find out more about what the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulations do.
Sure.
I know that you're everywhere in
Yep.
terms of businesses that are impacted by and those of us who are consumers by your organization.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, most people hear Consumer Affairs and automatically think of the Attorney General's office. We're a separate state agency. The Attorney General's office, that's a big part of what they do. They have the Consumer Protection Unit, but we're a separate state agency with our own mandate. And Undersecretary Chapman likes to say that we regulate Main Street America. You can't go down any Main Street without coming across an entity that we regulate. So we have 5 divisions under us. We have the Division of Banks, which oversees state-chartered banks and credit unions. There are about 200 of them in Massachusetts with combined assets of $400,000. They oversee the non-depository lenders, which are the debt collectors, check cashing businesses, amongst other things. We oversee the Division of Insurance, which oversees and regulates about 1,600 insurance companies in Massachusetts with over 100,000 producers. We oversee the Division of Standards, which has a multifaceted role. They inspect fuel pumps, they inspect fuel delivery trucks, they inspect scanners at convenience stores and gas stations. They inspect and oversee auto body repair and glass repair shops, among other things.
Wow.
We have the Department of Telecommunications and Cable, which regulates the telecommunications and cable industry. And lastly, we have the Division of Professional Licensure, which oversees and licenses about 500,000 licensees in Massachusetts, from chiropractors to accountants to electricians, plumbers, sheet metal workers, and they have a pretty broad mandate.
Oh, wow. You have a lot of responsibility.
Yes, yeah.
A couple of things that jumped out at me that I wanted to talk about was the do not call list.
Yes.
As part of it.
Okay.
How come, even though I'm still on the do not call,
Yes.
how come we're still getting calls?
Well, one of our mandates within the Office of Consumer Affairs is we oversee the do not call list along with the federal government. The problem is, and I was having this discussion with one of your staff when we came in, and we're talking about the various scams out there, and one of which is the National Grid scam, where they call in and say, if you don't want another call, hit 9 or 2 or whatnot, and then the next day you get a call on a different number. Well, they're scams. They're out to commit fraud on a consumer. So a do not call list is not going to deter them from that behavior. What I suggest to consumers is to invest in an answering machine. The problem is most people don't have landlines anymore. I think my wife and I are one of the few residents, but
I have one too.
But scammers and telemarketers hate those because it acts as a bridge between the entity and the consumer. And so I'll come home at night and there'll be a half a dozen ones, and most of them are scams. The IRS scam, purporting to be the IRS or what have you. But to answer your question, yes, we oversee the do not call list, and you're more than welcome to register with our office. And if it's a legitimate business, they're going to adhere to it. If it's a scammer, they're not, because they're out to commit fraud.
Does anybody throw anybody in jail? That's
Well,
what I knew I was going to meet you. That's what friends of mine asked. Does anybody ever go to jail for
violating the do
Yes.
not call list? Not likely. But what they are doing is they're going after these scammers. They recently, the U.S. Attorney's Office in one of the jurisdictions indicted a number of individuals on the IRS scam. And that's been around from the dawn of ages, but people are still being victimized by that. So. Yeah, we oversee the do not call list, amongst other things.
And then the other topic that I wanted to make sure we got to while we had time was the what you do with gas stations.
Okay, so the Division of Standards is responsible for licensing and inspecting fuel pumps. If you have if your town or city, or town I should say, is under 5,000, then our inspectors will come out and inspect your fuel pumps, and they do it on an annual basis. If you're above 5,000, you can contract with the Division of Standards, and we will do the service of what a local inspector would do. Right now, we have about 67 towns that we inspect for. But they'll go out and inspect the fuel pumps. They also inspect fuel delivery trucks to make sure that what is being purported or going into your tank is in fact going into it. We can talk a little later on about scams or a fraud, but one of the things that they're very involved in is skimming devices, which is becoming a real issue, not only here in Massachusetts, but throughout the United States. But they're responsible for inspecting gas stations, the pumps, to ensure that what is being advertised is in fact going into your gas tank.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so,
All right.
sure.
Well, you got a lot going on. We're going to come back and talk some more about other things that the office does, and we'll be back soon.